Hello everyone, welcome to Music is a Journey. I'm Peter, and today I'm responding to a video that was put out by Richard at Richard's Vinyl Taphouse. It was called 7 Then and 7 Now from 1987. What Richard did was to show 7 albums that were released in 1987 that he bought in that year, and then 7 more albums that were released in 1987 that he bought in more recent years. I think he was considering how his music tastes had changed or evolved, and so maybe his reason for going back to certain albums in 1987 that he had not bought at the time. He, at the end of his video, then welcomed others in the vinyl community, or viewers, whatever, to try their own hand at it if they felt like it. And I thought it sounded like a really good idea. At first, I wondered what year I would do. I considered 1989, the year of my high school graduation, or 1990, the year after. I also considered some years in the early 90s, but in the end, I decided 1987 was an interesting year for me. There are probably 3 parts to my musical journey around that time. And one of them was that I was really beginning to explore music from the 70s and soon to be music into the 60s more and more at that time. So a lot of the albums I bought were actually things like Nazareth, Sweet, Humble Pie, that sort of thing. But also a lot of the bands that I followed from the, let's say around like 82, 83 up to the mid 80s, I was beginning to become less satisfied with their output there around in 1987. So what we have are some reflections of that. And then perhaps you will see in the second half what my interest was in going back to 1987. And the albums I will show in the second half are all albums I have bought, I think, within the last 10 years or so. So let's get started here. First of all, we have, here we go, Aerosmith, Permanent Vacation. And of course, this is part of my 70s rock exploration. I got rock in a hard place, probably somewhere around 1983 or so. Became a fan of Aerosmith by 84. And yeah, They're Done With Mirror's album was all right. But this one here was really quite an extraordinary thing. And one of the things that struck me about it was the wide variety of music on here. I mean, we've got clarinets playing, we've got, of course, blues guitar, acoustic blues guitar and harmonica, we've got more melodic rockers like Magic Touch. So many different styles are on this album here, and it made it really entertaining for me. It wasn't simply just a hard rock album from start to finish. There was variety, the band was really stretching out, and of course, you know, Bruce Fairbairn was their producer, so probably he had a lot of input in how to do something a little bit different from maybe what the band was thinking to do. And of course, this album seriously put them back on the map, big time, back in the saddle again. Where's my program? Here. This is my program from the Permanent Vacation Tour, which I saw back in 1987 in Vancouver. Lots of photos and stuff in here. So this was a really cool concert, but one of the things I remember was Steven Tyler was leaping off the amplifiers, the speaker stacks, and doing splits in the air. He was doing backflips over the microphone stand, and really athletic and acrobatic guy. And later on, I found out he was something like 37 or 38 at the time anyway, in his late 30s, but man, what an entertainer and performer on stage. Next up, this goes back to the 1970s, my 1970s hard rock, proto-metal, whatever, heavy rock exploration. I really got into Deep Purple around 1984, shortly before the Mark II reunion. And of course, after I'd acquired a few albums, Perfect Strangers came out, and that was really cool because there was only a certain group of people in my junior high school at the time who were interested in it. A lot of people were more into Motley Crue and Def Leppard and AC/DC, and I guess just didn't care for the Hammond organ thing. But here we go in 1987, actually right near the beginning, I think, Deep Purple released the second of the reunion, Mark II reunion albums, and this is The House of Blue Light. So I didn't like it as much as Perfect Strangers. I felt the sound, the overall sound and atmosphere of Perfect Strangers was just that much cooler. This one felt like they were reaching a little bit more for a commercial atmosphere, especially on a song like Call of the Wild, which had a really strong melodic chorus. But there were also some pretty good rockers on there. The opening track, Bad Attitude, quite a punchy number that one is. And I always liked the Mitzi Dupree with its, interesting guitar intro. Sounds like Richie Blackmore is getting his hand unfrozen somehow. I remember a girlfriend I had at the time, she listened to the beginning of that song and she just looked, problems? Anyway, I still rather like the album though. So that's Deep Purple's House of Blue Light. And then another band I was a big fan of there between 83 to about 85, 86 from San Francisco, Y&T. Actually, I think they were more from Oakland. But anyway, the Bay Area, Y&T. And I really liked, anyway, 3 of the albums that came a bit before this one. And then the one that came just before this felt like they were really trying to appeal to the commercial market, the mainstream market. And so this album here, they switched labels. They went from A&M over to Geffen, and Geffen promised them this and that and was going to make them really big and all. And they came out with this album here, Contagious, which is a really good 1987 hard rockin' album. But again, it does feel like they're reaching for the mainstream, trying to be part of the whole hard rock, glam rock scene in a way. And they got, I think, 1 video for this, 1 single for this, and they wanted to do more, but then Geffen said, no, you got your 1 single. That's all we're doing for you. Yeah. Anyway, that's Y&T, Contagious, and still a pretty good, solid album. So, along those lines, one of the newer bands I got into was a band called TNT. This is from, I think they were from Sweden. This is, I would almost say it is like a cross between glam metal and the forthcoming European power metal, because the guitar playing on here is pretty phenomenal. Like very fast, speedy licks, really cool melodic riffs, very high tone singing, lots of melody, but short, compact songs. There were a couple on here. I remember Everyone's a Star, the opener, and 10,000 Lovers in One. Those are just really great, great songs. As far as the eye can see, kind of a power ballad. Yeah, these guys were just really damn good at what they did. I bought the album that came before this, which I think was the debut, and I bought Intuition, which came after this. Right now, I only have Tell No Tales on CD, though. So that's TNT. So I guess the pattern here is we're seeing either like from Aerosmith and Deep Purple, the bands of the 70s, what they're doing in 1987, and as well some of the, well, Y&T also formed in the 70s, so and then some of the newer bands like TNT, or also like White Lion. I'm not sure if this was their second album. There was one that came before this I used to have on cassette, but anyway, Pride, that was their big one with the song and the When the Children Cry, and I don't know what else was big on here. I have actually not listened to this for a long time, but I think it was one of the first albums I bought on CD after I started buying my old cassette albums on CD. So this is still like a copy going back to whenever it goes back to. Probably this is like the very first CD edition of this or something like that. And I haven't listened to it for a very, very long time. I think the White Line is getting a little bit yellowish around the sides here. But yeah, here we are again talking great guitar playing, lots of melodic choruses, very catchy songs. Yeah, so that seemed to be the thing. And going along with those lines, here we have the Macaulay Schenker group with Michael Schenker and somebody Macaulay. I'm sorry, sir, I've forgotten your name. This again, 1987, very melodic. I don't really think you'd call it heavy metal. I mean, it rocks out sometimes, but it's not particularly heavy. But anyway, you know, distorted guitars, glammy metal type, I guess. The image on the back, if you can see that, I don't know if you're getting glare on there, but yeah, again, I like a lot of the songs on here. No Time for Losers, the power ballad Time, I don't know. Yeah, most of the songs here are just those melodic, like, I guess glam metal or melodic hard rock or glam rock, whatever style. And this was an album that I had on cassette back in the day. I remember taking a math test, and after the math test was done, I was done for the day, and I went straight up the road to A&B Sound and got this on cassette. And I picked it up on CD just a few years ago. And then one more, this was actually an exciting new exploration for me around 1987. It was Pink Floyd. Probably I started buying their stuff around 86. buying all their old classic albums on cassette, and then of course the new one came out, and actually I went to see this concert as well. Got a t-shirt packed away in a box in another room there. No program to show, but yeah, a momentary lapse of reason. So yeah, what we're looking at here, what I was buying, at least in this set here, is a lot of very melodic music with distorted guitar, very talented guitarists. Some songs rocking out a bit more, some of them not as much, but that was the flavor of the original 1987 package. And now what I went back to 1987 for, and this actually was part of my 1987 musical interest. At the time, I just didn't buy so many albums in that style. So first of all, here we go. This is Candlemass, said to be one of the first new wave, but anyway, the doom metal bands, along with the likes of Saint Vitus, Pentagram, Witchfinder General, and so on, who started releasing albums in the, well, maybe the late 70s or early 1980s. So here we go, Candlemass, and this is Nightfall, and this is like some big, fantastic triple disc box set, and I haven't listened to it for a while, but I picked it up maybe about 8 years ago or something. So yes, going back to that. Also, this one I know I just picked up last year, my most recent one. This is Armored Saint. What the heck is it called? Something about fear. It's called Raising Fear. Gosh, it's really hard for me to see some of this sometimes here. I never had an Armored Saint album, although my best friend had a couple or a few anyway. So last year I was thinking, maybe it's about time I get one. And then one just showed up on Yahoo Auction. It's one of those auctions where they started at 1 yen. Like, that's the absolute lowest you can go, 1 yen. And then, you know, people bid. And I think I got it for something like 700 and something yen, which is actually a very good price, because even though, was it used? I don't know. The condition is like new anyway. Listened to it once or twice, and then I put it off because I'm thinking to do an American 80s power metal video. And so I've been not listening to it in order to listen to it when I prepare for that video, which I decided to do a year ago and still haven't done yet. So we'll have to get back to this one. Let me see here. And of course, in the 1980s, I was into thrash metal, but by 1987, I was starting to, move along more into 70s and 60s. So anyway, I never got Death Angels, the Ultraviolence, which I remember seeing in the store at the time. I never got it, but I finally did some years back. And yeah, these guys were really young. I think the drummer was 12 and the other band members were like 14, 15, 16 when they released this album. So that was their debut in 1987, The Ultraviolence by Death Angel, and they are still going today. They had a new album out a year or two ago, I think. Then another band I was never into at the time, that is Sodom, and I've picked up 3 of their albums since then in the last, one was like just 2 years ago, and then the last 10 years or so. So German thrash metal band, and actually this one here, Persecution Mania, this is my favorite of them. I don't remember if this was their debut full-length album, or they had an EP and a full-length before that, and then was this one. Anyway, whatever. Sodom. So, yeah, not their most highest rated album, but among their most highest rated albums. Okay, and then, let's see here. This one, I remember this album cover, and I just thought, man, thrash metal albums are getting so dorky with their album covers. But the album is not dorky at all. This is Infernal Majesty from Canada. Not only is it thrash, but it is pretty dark and pretty gruff, and one could say it's like, well, actually, some people have said this. This was one of their stepping stones to get into death metal, going from Metallica to something darker and heavier, Infernal Majesty, and then going on from there like a springboard more into death metal. So not quite death metal, but it's on the cusp, I'd say, and certainly you could put it in a proto death metal list. So that is Infernal Majesty from Canada. And then one other band I think is kind of similar in the way too, also from Canada. This is a band called Slaughter. There was an American Slaughter, which was more of a glam metal type. Canada's Slaughter was, well, an extreme metal band. Pretty raw and wild and loud and great. Chuck Schuldiner of Death actually played in this band for about 6 months before returning to Florida and then, starting up with Scream Bloody Gore, which was also released in 1987. So yeah, here on the back it says to play loud, and this is a pretty rough, gruff album. And again, like this image of skeletons and torture devices, I'd say it's kind of a stepping stone away from regular thrash metal and getting a little bit close to the death metal territory. And after I loaded the video into my computer, put it in the app, and edited everything and started to upload it to a file, I suddenly realized as I came back to the desk here, I forgot one more album from 1987. I only did 6 of my revisits, so I'm inserting this in here. Mayhem, Death Crush EP. I think this was the first, well, there might have been some demos or something, but Mayhem, who were later on part of, actually right near the Dead Center, one of the singers' names was Dead, and he died, killed himself. Anyway, Mayhem were kind of dead center of the Norwegian black metal scene there in the 90s that were involved with suicides and murders and church burnings and all that kind of thing. I don't think actually any members of Mayhem, well, at least not the ones I saw in interviews, said they were part of the church burnings, but people involved with the band or around the band maybe were. Anyway, Mayhem's album Death Crush, and of course this is not really a black metal album because there wasn't really that style of black metal at the time. This is just still extreme metal, very thrashy, some great riffs on here, very coarse, rough playing, shouted vocals, you know, extreme metal for the 1980s that was more extreme than just regular thrash metal. So there we go. And now we're going to insert this in to the video somehow and continue. So that's it. That's what happened to me in 1987 back then, as I said, and then going back to 1987 in the last 10 years was mostly for this, you know, extreme metal of the day. Yes, I did get Yes, Big Generator and Rush, Hold Your Fire, but that was more like about 13, 14 years ago. So we're going to stick with the really heavy stuff and say that's what I went back to 1987 for in the last few years. And that's my response to Richard's 7 Then and 7 Now from 1987 video. I'll put the link to his video below. Do check it out. And hey, why not give it a shot yourself? Pick whatever year you want. Something you bought back then and something you bought in more recent years. Thanks for watching, everybody. Comments appreciated. See you in another video. I am really trying to catch up on all these videos that were out while I was away. I have a long list of catching up to do. I'll get there. All right, everybody. Thanks for all the comments on my videos while I was away. Return comments are coming soon. Cheers all.